When a woman ignores you, she is betting on one thing: that you will break before she does, that you will fold under the weight of her silence, that you will hand over your dignity in exchange for her attention. And most men prove her right, flooding her phone with messages, chasing her shadow online, bending their lives around her absence as if she is the axis the world spins on. But you are not here to be most men. You are here because you are tired of letting someone else's choices dictate your worth. You are here because you feel that burning inside, that quiet anger at yourself for every time you've lowered your standards to hold on to someone who was already walking away, and you are ready to turn that anger into discipline. The way you react when she ignores you is the test that reveals what you truly believe about yourself. If you believe you are nothing without her, you will chase. If you believe your value exists regardless, you will not move, and that is where the power lies. Stoicism teaches that you control your mind, not the actions of others. And when you live that truth, her silence no longer has claws. It becomes background noise while you move forward with precision, purpose, and unshakable calm. This is not about making her miss you. It's about making yourself so focused, so grounded, and so disciplined that you stop needing her to validate your existence. And the moment you do that, you flip the script entirely, because nothing destroys ego like realizing the person you thought you could control is untouchable. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do it, not with empty motivational talk, but with actions and mindsets you can start living right now, so that whether she comes back or stays gone, you win, because you will be standing as the man who does not chase, the man who cannot be manipulated, and the man who moves forward no matter who walks away. Number 1. Silence is your weapon. When she ignores you, every instinct in your body screams for you to react, to reach out, to fill the void with words, messages, calls, or some gesture that will make her turn back toward you. And that instinct is the exact thing that will keep you trapped in the position she's placed you in, because the moment you try to force her attention, you confirm that she can control your state of mind with her absence, and control is the one thing you must never hand over. The ability to remain still when you are provoked, to remain unmoved when you are tested, to hold your ground when every part of you wants to break silence is what separates men who are respected from men who are discarded. Because silence in this situation is not weakness, it is discipline. It is the deliberate act of not rewarding neglect with pursuit. It is the choice to show without explanation that your time and energy are not available to someone who treats them carelessly. Most men cannot endure that space. They will crack within hours or days, flooding her with attention, thinking they are fixing the situation when all they are doing is proving their dependence. But when you hold your silence, you force her to feel the gap she created. You force her to experience the absence of your presence, and people only begin to measure the weight of something when it is no longer there. This is not about punishing her, it is about refusing to participate in a dynamic where you are the only one investing. It is about preserving your dignity by not begging for what should be given willingly, and in that restraint, you send the clearest possible message. My attention is earned, not taken for granted. But this requires more than just ignoring her. It requires filling that silence with your own growth, because if you sit there waiting for her to notice, you will break. So you must use the time she's not speaking to build yourself into someone who is too occupied to notice she's gone. You train harder, you work smarter, you deepen your connections with people who value you, you invest in your craft, your business, your future, so that every day she spends withholding her attention, you are getting stronger, sharper, more self-contained. This is how silence becomes a weapon. Not because you are trying to wound her, but because you are showing through your actions that you cannot be diminished by her withdrawal. And when she realizes that your life is moving forward without hesitation, without dependence on her involvement, the balance shifts, because the fear of being forgotten is far more powerful than the comfort of being chased. Your silence must be unshakable, not a tactic, but a truth. The truth that your worth is not up for negotiation. The truth that if someone cannot see your value in your presence, they will feel it in your absence. And when you master this, you will never again fear being ignored, because you will understand that silence, held with conviction, speaks louder than anything you could say. And if you're ready to take this mindset from an idea to a way of life, you need to get the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men. I've linked it in the comments. This isn't just a book you skim once and forget. It's a blueprint you own forever, something you can go back to any time life tests you, whether that's in relationships or in the quiet battles you fight with yourself. Ask yourself, how many more times are you willing to feel powerless in someone else's silence? How much longer will you let your peace depend on another person's attention? This book gives you the tools to end that cycle permanently, to stand unshakable no matter who stays or leaves. And once you have it, no one can take that away from you. It's yours for life. The knowledge, the strategies, the mindset, always within reach, ready to keep you in control when the world tries to pull it from you. Number 2, detach your validation. The reason her silence cuts you so deeply is because somewhere along the way, you made her reaction the mirror you measure yourself by. You tied your sense of worth to whether she responds, whether she approves, whether she acknowledges you. And when that acknowledgement disappears, you feel like you disappear with it. But this is an illusion you have built through years of handing your value over to external approval. And until you take it back, you will be at the mercy of whoever you give it to. Detaching your validation means cutting the rope that ties your self-esteem to another person's opinion. It means deciding that your sense of worth is not up for auction every time someone pulls away. It means building such a complete and independent identity that whether she praises you or ignores you, you remain the same man, moving with the same purpose, holding the same standards, walking the same path. Most men fail here because they are conditioned to seek constant reassurance. They confuse someone's interest with their own value, so when interest fades, they assume value has faded too. But the truth is that nothing about you changes because someone else fails to see it. What changes is your perspective when you allow their perception to define you. The man who detaches his validation is dangerous because he cannot be controlled by affection, withheld, or given. He cannot be swayed into abandoning his boundaries just to get attention, and this is what forces people to treat him with respect. They know that their approval is not his fuel. In practical terms, this detachment comes from building multiple sources of identity and pride that have nothing to do with her. Your physical discipline, your financial independence, your skill set, your network, your ability to contribute value to the world, your unshakable adherence to your own standards. These are the pillars that hold you up, so that if one crumbles, you do not collapse with it. When you live like this, her ignoring you does not register as a personal crisis. It registers as a simple piece of information. She is not choosing to engage right now, and that is her choice. But it does not alter your direction, your effort, or your momentum. And the irony is that the moment you truly stop looking to her for validation, you often find that the dynamic changes, because nothing draws attention like someone who does not need it. But this cannot be faked, it must be lived, because people can sense the difference between real independence and a performance designed to provoke a reaction. You achieve it by shifting every ounce of focus you would have spent trying to get her to value you into making yourself impossible to undervalue, and when you reach that state, you will see clearly that her silence never had the power to define you. Only you could give it that power, and now you have taken it back for good. Number 3, stop feeding her attention. Every time you look at her story, every time you like her photo, every time you leave a comment or even linger on her profile, you are handing over a piece of your power without receiving anything of equal value in return. And when someone ignores you yet continues to receive your attention, it only reinforces in their mind that your focus is theirs by default, that they can step back without losing their place in your priorities, that you will continue to orbit them regardless of whether they acknowledge you. This is how you trap yourself in a cycle of one-sided investment, where she can withdraw without consequence, while you continue to pour into her ego bank, making her absence easier for her because she never truly feels it, and harder for you because you are constantly reminded of her presence in your life without any real connection. In the modern world, attention is one of the most valuable forms of currency. It drives perception, shapes status, and determines influence, and yet most men give it away recklessly, treating it as if it costs nothing, when in reality it costs everything, because where you give your attention is where you give your emotional energy, and where you give your emotional energy is where you anchor your sense of importance. When she ignores you, you must treat your attention like a resource that is cut off the moment the exchange stops being mutual, because the more you allow it to flow towards someone who does not value it, the weaker your position becomes, not only with her but with yourself, because deep down, you know you are participating in your own devaluation. Stopping the feed means cutting the invisible cord, not just refraining from direct communication, but removing the indirect channels where she still receives validation from you. No more silent likes, no more casual views, no more small digital breadcrumbs that say, "I'm still here." The moment you stop feeding her attention, you shift the dynamic in two ways. You create space for yourself to redirect that energy into building your own life, and you create a void in hers where your constant supply used to be. A void that, whether she admits it or not, will register, because humans always notice the absence of consistent validation, even if they never acknowledge it out loud. But this must be done without bitterness or performance. You are not withholding to make a point. You are simply moving your resources where they will be respected. And the faster you do this, the faster you will regain your clarity and control. Most men will never do this because they have convinced themselves that continuing to feed attention will somehow keep them in the running, that it will remind her of their presence and lead her back. But in reality, it only cements their role as background noise, always available, always present, never respected. When you truly stop feeding her attention, you take away the passive comfort she has in knowing she can ignore you without losing anything, and you replace that with the knowledge, for her and for yourself, that your focus is earned, and the moment it is no longer reciprocated, it moves elsewhere without hesitation. Number 4, make her absence irrelevant. The moment you attach meaning to her absence, the moment you frame it as proof of your worth or lack of worth, you hand over the ability to dictate your emotional state to someone else. And that is a position no man can afford to live in, because it keeps you reactive instead of proactive, waiting instead of moving, hoping instead of building. Making her absence irrelevant is not about pretending she doesn't exist. It is about genuinely restructuring your life so that her presence or lack of it does not alter your direction, your ambition, your sense of fulfillment, or your daily rhythm. Because the truth is that the weight her absence carries is determined entirely by how much space you allow it to occupy in your mind and in your schedule. If you leave room for her, if you hold space in your plans, if you pause your growth in the hope she might return, you turn her absence into a central figure in your life. But if you remove that space and fill it with purpose, discipline, and forward momentum, she becomes just another person who came and went, not the defining factor in your future. This requires brutal honesty, because for many men, her absence feels like a void, only because their life was not full to begin with, and that void is not her creation. It is a gap in your own foundation that she simply occupied for a time. The way to make her absence irrelevant is to fill your life so completely that there is no room for that void to exist. To take the hours you once spent thinking about her, waiting for her, trying to interpret her behavior, and pour them into pursuits that expand you, advancing your career, building your body into something you respect in the mirror, deepening your skills in areas that make you more capable, surrounding yourself with people who uplift and challenge you, and immersing yourself in experiences that remind you how much life exists beyond one person's choice to engage or not. When you live like this, You reach a point where whether she returns or stays gone is a detail, not a defining event, and that is when the balance shifts permanently in your favor, because people can feel when their presence is no longer the axis around which you turn. Most men resist this because it feels like letting go, but in reality, it is taking back. It is reclaiming the energy you were giving to someone else's absence and investing it into your own expansion, and the transformation this creates is visible. You carry yourself differently, you speak differently, you move differently, not because you are pretending to be unaffected, but because you are genuinely too engaged in your own progress to be derailed. And the irony is that when you make her absence irrelevant, you often find that others, including her, are drawn back toward you, not because you chased them, but because you stopped making them the center of your life, and in doing so you reminded them, and yourself, that you were never meant to orbit anyone else's world, you were meant to build your own. Number 5. Level up without her. When she ignores you, the worst thing you can do is stop moving forward, because the moment you put your life on hold in the hope that she will come back, you make her the center of your existence, and whether you realize it or not, you're sending the message that without her participation, your world slows down or even stands still, and that message destroys respect faster than any words you could speak. The man who truly values himself refuses to make another person's decision, the reason he pauses his own growth. Instead, he uses that moment as a turning point, as the exact catalyst to accelerate, to push harder, to aim higher than he did before. Because the truth is that the best way to make her silence irrelevant is to ensure that you are no longer the same man she ignored, to evolve so far and so fast that you would not even recognize the version of yourself that once sat around analyzing her absence. Leveling up without her means refusing to wait for permission. It means throwing yourself fully into the process of becoming more physically capable, more financially secure, more socially connected, more disciplined in every habit, more intentional in every choice, so that every day you live, you are building a gap between who you are now and who you were when she stepped away. And that gap is what changes everything. Because the wider it grows, the less power she has over you. Not because you've tried to erase her, but because you've replaced the space she occupied with tangible progress that makes you proud of yourself, with or without anyone's approval. The reality is that most men will never do this. They will waste weeks or months frozen in emotional limbo, thinking about what went wrong, wondering what she's doing, watching her life from the sidelines instead of building their own. And in that wasted time, they give up ground they can never get back. But when you refuse to live like that, when you take the same energy you once spent on chasing her and invest it into becoming a more capable man, you change the balance of the entire situation. Not because you are trying to provoke her reaction, but because your life becomes so full that her choice to disengage no longer dictates your direction. You wake up earlier, you train harder, you learn skills that increase your earning power. You surround yourself with people who challenge and inspire you. You put yourself into environments where opportunity exists, and you set goals so clear and so demanding that they pull you forward whether she ever reappears or not. This is not a performance, it is a permanent shift, a refusal to let anyone's absence slow your climb. And once you adopt it, you will realize that the man who levels up without her never truly loses her, because either she will return to find someone she can no longer take for granted, or she will stay gone, leaving space for someone who values the man you've become. And in either case, you win. Number 6. Let mystery do the work. When you respond to being ignored by making yourself more visible, by posting more, by broadcasting your every move in an attempt to show her you're unaffected, all you are doing is making her absence easier for her, because she can still keep track of you without having to engage. She can still feel your presence without giving you hers, and she has no reason to wonder about you because you're giving away the answers to questions she hasn't even asked. Mystery is the opposite of that. It is the conscious decision to remove her access to your inner world, to close the window she's been looking through, to make it so that if she wants to know where you are, what you're doing, and who you're with, she has to make an effort to find out, and that effort is where interest is either rekindled or lost. Mystery works because people value what they cannot easily access, and if you continue to give her the same level of transparency after she has pulled away, you eliminate the very thing that could make her reconsider. You take away the curiosity that drives people to close distance. But to create real mystery, you cannot just disappear from her view and sit in silence doing nothing, because that is not mystery, that is absence. True mystery comes from living a life so active and so full of movement that there is something to wonder about, and from refusing to broadcast the details of that life to someone who has not earned a front row seat. It means tightening the circle of people who have direct access to you. It means being selective about what you share and with whom. It means recognizing that not everyone needs to know your next move, and that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to let your actions be felt rather than seen. In practice, this might mean you still go out, still meet new people, still build yourself, but you do it without handing her a free pass to keep tabs on you from a distance. You allow questions to build in her mind by creating space between what she used to know about you and what she knows now. And while you are doing this, you stay focused on your own growth, because mystery without substance is a trick, but mystery backed by real progress is magnetic. It creates a pull that cannot be faked, because when someone senses that there is more happening in your life than they are privy to, they will either step in to find out or step aside and watch. But either way, you have shifted the dynamic from you wondering about her to her wondering about you, and that is a shift worth making. Number 7. Social proof kills her doubt. Social proof is one of the most underestimated forces in human behavior, yet it is one of the most reliable psychological levers you can pull without ever saying a word, because humans are wired to assign value to what others value. And this is as true in attraction as it is in business. When she ignores you, part of what makes it easy for her to do so is the unspoken assumption that she is the highest quality connection you have, that you have no other sources of validation, no other women in your orbit, no other social network that elevates you. But the moment you change that, the moment you position yourself in environments where other high-value people openly appreciate you, the moment you are seen in the company of women who respect and enjoy your presence, the moment you are associated with activities, groups, and achievements that carry social weight, the narrative in her head begins to shift. Not because you told her you're valuable, but because she sees evidence that other people have already decided you are. This is why social proof is so powerful. It bypasses verbal persuasion entirely and speaks directly to the subconscious, where perception of value is formed. And this doesn't mean posting staged photos with random women or pretending to live a lifestyle you don't, because fake proof is transparent and damages credibility. It means genuinely building a network and a lifestyle where people want to be around you, where your presence adds energy to the room, where you are part of circles that command respect. And in doing so, you create a reality in which ignoring you becomes a questionable choice, because if others see your value and she doesn't, she has to ask herself if she's misjudged you. The beauty of social proof is that it doesn't just affect her. It affects everyone's perception of you. And the more your reputation grows, the less dependent you are on any one person's opinion. So instead of wasting time wondering why she's not texting back, you put yourself in rooms where your name carries weight. You contribute value, you build alliances, you cultivate friendships and connections that open doors. And before long, her ignoring you will not only be irrelevant, it will be her loss, because she will be watching from the sidelines as you move in circles she no longer has access to. And the silent question she will have to live with is whether she walked away from someone who was about to become untouchable. And that is the kind of doubt that social proof plants effortlessly. Number 8. Indifference is irresistible. Indifference is not pretending you don't care while secretly obsessing in the background. It is the real, unshakable state where her attention, her validation, her presence, or her absence have no bearing on your emotional stability, your self-image, or the way you move through the world. And this state is magnetic because it is rare, because almost every man she has dealt with in her life has been wired to react to her moods, her choices, her approval, and when she meets a man who simply does not bend under that weight, who doesn't rise and fall according to whether she is leaning in or pulling away, she is forced to recalibrate her approach. But here's the truth that most men refuse to accept. You cannot manufacture indifference overnight. You cannot fake it by ignoring her for a few days while secretly hoping she notices. Because real indifference comes from building such a complete and fulfilling life that no one person holds the keys to your sense of peace. It comes from truly internalizing that you are the source of your own value, and that anyone who comes into your life is an addition, not the foundation. When you are genuinely indifferent, you no longer measure your worth by her reactions. And because you are not chasing, persuading, or performing for her approval, every interaction you have is grounded in choice, not desperation. This is powerful because women are biologically and socially conditioned to respect men who are not easily swayed, who have standards that are not negotiable based on beauty or charm. And when you demonstrate through consistent behavior that you will not be pulled into emotional games, you automatically separate yourself from the sea of men who crumble at the first sign of withdrawal. But indifference is not cruelty. It is clarity. The clarity to recognize that your time, attention, and emotional energy are investments, and that you only place those investments where they bring returns. And the moment you realize the returns are gone, you simply reallocate without bitterness or complaint. This is the mindset of a man who cannot be manipulated, because manipulation requires emotional dependency, and when that dependency is gone, so is her control. Achieving this level of indifference requires work, not in the form of rehearsed lines or pick-up strategies, but in the relentless pursuit of your mission, your health, your financial independence, your network, your skills, your discipline, because the busier and more fulfilled you are, the less mental space you have to obsess over someone who isn't actively contributing to your life. And here's where it gets almost paradoxical. The more indifferent you truly become, the more you will notice that people, including women who once pulled away, will lean back in, because nothing draws human attention like someone who does not need it. And while that might sound like a strategy to get her back, it must never be the goal, because the moment it becomes about getting a reaction, you've lost the purity of real indifference. You must reach the point where her reappearance or continued absence both register as equally acceptable outcomes, where you can smile at either possibility and keep moving forward without a pause, because at that point you have become what most men never will. A man whose value is not up for negotiation and whose sense of self is untouchable. Number 9. Never reward disrespect. Disrespect is not always obvious or verbal. Sometimes it is subtle, quiet, and passive, like being ignored without reason, being left out without acknowledgement, or having your time and effort taken for granted. And when you allow these forms of disrespect to pass without consequence, you teach people, including women, that your boundaries are flexible, that your standards can be bent, that your dignity is negotiable, and this is the beginning of the slow erosion of your self-respect. Ignoring you when there's no valid reason is not just a lapse in communication. It is a signal that you are not being prioritized, and if you respond by increasing your effort, you are rewarding the very behavior that should have triggered withdrawal on your part. You need to understand that in human behavior, what gets rewarded gets repeated. And if she learns that she can disappear and return to find you still waiting, still eager, still ready to pick up where she left off, she will keep doing it. Not necessarily because she is malicious, but because you have shown her that there is no cost to treating you that way. Boundaries are not about controlling others, they are about controlling yourself. about deciding in advance what you will and will not tolerate, and then having the discipline to enforce those lines without hesitation, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it means losing someone you wanted to keep, because the alternative is losing yourself. When you stop rewarding disrespect, you send a message that your time, your attention, and your energy are not free commodities to be accessed at will. They are earned through mutual respect and consistent behavior, and the people who cannot meet that standard are simply removed from access, no matter how attractive, charming, or once important they were. This is where most men fail, because they are so afraid of loss that they accept terms that slowly degrade them, convincing themselves that some attention is better than none. But the truth is, scraps are more damaging than starvation, because they keep you tied to someone who has already shown you they do not value you the way you value them. Cutting off rewards for disrespect is not an act of revenge, it is an act of self-protection. Because the longer you remain in environments where your worth is undermined, the more you start to believe the diminished version of yourself that is reflected back to you, and once that belief sets in, it becomes harder and harder to break. So when you encounter disrespect, you address it once if it's worth addressing, and if it continues, you remove yourself entirely, not with a dramatic outburst, but with the calm, unwavering certainty that you will not be where you are not respected. And the moment you start living by that rule, you will notice that not only do you lose fewer people than you feared, but the quality of the people who remain in your life rises sharply, because respect is a filter, and the sooner you enforce it, the sooner you separate those who value you from those who never truly did. Number 10. Replace, don't chase. When someone walks away from you, when they turn their back, when they withdraw their attention and presence without cause or respect, the most destructive thing you can do is run after them, because chasing is an unspoken admission that they hold the power, that their absence is a wound you cannot survive without closing. And the moment you put yourself in that position, you are no longer an equal participant in the dynamic. You are the pursuer, the supplicant, the man who is asking to be chosen instead of being the man who chooses. Chasing feeds the illusion that the person who left is irreplaceable, that they hold a singular value in your life that no one else can match. And this is one of the most dangerous mental traps you can fall into, because it erases your ability to see beyond them, to recognize that their departure is not a collapse but a clearing, a space where something better can and will exist if you have the strength to let it. Replacement is not about finding another woman simply to provoke jealousy or to fill a void out of fear. It is about redirecting the energy, time, and mental space you were giving to someone who devalued you into people, opportunities, and environments that value you without hesitation. It is about building a reality so rich and so engaging that the loss of one participant is nothing more than a minor shift in the scenery. Replacement is a discipline, a choice to operate from abundance rather than scarcity. Because when you operate from scarcity, you convince yourself that what you lost was the only source of connection, intimacy, or fulfillment available to you. And from that place, you will accept terms you should never accept. You will lower standards you swore you would never lower, and you will betray your own self-respect just to hold on to what is already gone in essence, if not in name. When you commit to replacement, you train yourself to see endings not as emotional catastrophes, but as strategic openings. And this reframing is powerful because it removes the paralysis that keeps most men stuck in cycles of pursuit, begging, and self-degradation. In practical terms, replacing means expanding your social circle so that you are constantly meeting new people, developing new connections, engaging in environments where you are valued and appreciated, building your skill set so you are more capable and desirable in every arena of life, improving your health and physical presence so you radiate vitality and self-discipline, increasing your income and financial independence so you are never bound to anyone by material dependence, and cultivating a mindset where your sense of worth is so deeply rooted in your own standards and achievements that no one's rejection can uproot it. When you do this, something powerful happens. The person who left loses the inflated importance they once had in your mind, because they are no longer the sole or primary source of the things you need to feel complete. And the more you invest in replacement, the more you realize that their absence was not the end of anything essential, but simply the end of an arrangement that was no longer serving you. Replacement forces you to outgrow them, because in the process of finding and creating better, you become better, and that growth is irreversible. Once you have seen what life can be without the weight of chasing, you cannot go back to living in pursuit of someone who has already decided to step away. Replacement also sends a clear message without you ever having to speak it, that your life is not on pause for anyone, that you do not beg for access, that you are constantly in motion toward higher levels of experience, connection, and value. And if someone chooses to leave, they are choosing to remove themselves from a trajectory that will continue with or without them. And this is the ultimate truth. People respect what they cannot control. And when you replace instead of chase, you remove the lever they would have used to keep you tethered. You show that your path is not dependent on their cooperation, and you make it clear to yourself and to the world that you are not a man who waits to be chosen. You are a man who chooses, and once you truly internalize that, you will never again see the end of a relationship as a loss, but as an invitation to something greater, because the reality is that the man who replaces never stays stuck in the past. He builds the kind of future that makes the past irrelevant. If you've made it this far, you already know the truth. No woman's silence should ever have the power to break you, and the man who learns to master himself will never again be at the mercy of anyone else's attention. But knowing the truth isn't enough. You need the tools to live it every single day. That's why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint, the exact strategies and mental frameworks that put you in control of your emotions, your standards, and your life. This isn't about winning her back, it's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to. It's linked in the comments, and once you own it, it's yours forever. A lifetime weapon you can reach for whenever life tries to pull you back into weakness. If you're ready to stop being someone's option and start being the man who decides, drop a comment right now saying the Stoic Blueprint. Hit the like button so this reaches more men who are about to waste years chasing the wrong things, and subscribe so we can keep spreading truths that the world doesn't want you to hear.